going to be talking some NFL draft. Now, I have not done a lot of draft coverage. As we know, the draft is about 3 weeks away. There's a lot of interesting things in terms of the draft. Now, those of you that have followed the show a lot know that I do not do mock drafts a ton. I may, if I have time, which I'm planning to do so this year, do one mock draft where I go through the first round. I don't do all those 7 round mocks. I may do a Browns or an Eagles, which you guys know are my teams. Obviously, Browns, hometown team. Eagles have been my favorite team ever since I was 5 years old. For those of you that think I'm a bandwagon fan, I am from Cleveland, Ohio. Those of you that watch the podcast or listen to it know this. But nonetheless, I don't do a ton of my drafts, but I wanted to give you sort of my thoughts on the first few picks and of the quarterbacks in this year's draft because I haven't really dove into it. We talked a lot from the Bears' perspective of the Bears trading away the number 1 overall pick, obviously getting DJ Moore and a bunch of draft capital back to help support Justin Fields. And I've talked about this a lot, how I believe that quarterbacks nowadays need support. They need weapons. They need an offensive coach. On and on and on. I feel like I've talked ad nauseum about that. And that's a little preview for Brandon's fundamentals at the end of the show. But there is a lot of speculation on what Carolina will do with the number 1 overall pick. We all know it's going to be a quarterback. The question is, will it be Bryce Young, the smaller, sort of less than 6 foot tall, less than ideal prototype quarterback who's got extreme talent out of Alabama? Will it be the prototypical Justin Herbert, lookalike 6'3", 6'4", big, strong kid? CJ Stroud out of Ohio State, where we have not seen a ton of success out of Ohio State quarterbacks in the past. Will it be Anthony or Will Levis, out of Kentucky, or will it be Anthony Richardson out of Florida, who has a lot of comparisons with Cam Newton and Josh Allen, but he is seen as raw? We're a lot like Trey Lance, and we're seeing now San Francisco might have made a mistake with Trey Lance. Obviously, Anthony Richardson did not have a lot of snaps in college, big arm talent, but will it translate to the NFL like Josh Allen, or will he be a Jamarcus Russell type prospect? Carolina, I do like the fact they have an offensive coach in Frank Reich. I thought it was an absolute hire. Yes, Steve Wilkes did a good job as the interim head coach, or they fired Matt Rule. But again, you have to go progressively leading offense in 2023. Frank Reich was wrongfully fired as the Indianapolis Colts head coach. I like the fact that he gets a chance to select his quarterback. If I had to guess, you look at the quarterbacks Frank Reich has worked with throughout his career, whether it's been Carson Wentz, Phillip Rivers, Nick Foles, obviously Jacoby Brissett. He has worked with a lot of taller-ish quarterbacks. He has not worked a lot, if at all, with smaller-ish quarterbacks, which is why Carolina is probably going to take the prototypical CJ Stroud. And there is this thought out there that Bryce Young may be too small for the NFL game and that you should take a small quarterback, specifically with the number 1 overall pick. However, we did see Cleveland do it with Baker Mayfield, who has proven himself to be, at best, a fill-in starter for a couple of games, a very high-quality backup in this league, though not a franchise-altering quarterback like some Cleveland Browns fans still think he is. Again, as you guys know, I would have picked Josh Allen in that draft. I thought he had the highest ceiling. I do really like 2 quarterbacks in this draft. There's one out of Tennessee, Hooker, who is supposedly going to go in the 2nd or 3rd round, and I really like his upside. I think with the right coaching and the right talent, a lot like Jalen Hurts, where he went to Philadelphia, obviously transferred from Alabama to Oklahoma. I think Hooker could be the steal of this draft at the quarterback position. But with the number 1 overall pick, if I was the Carolina Panthers, I would personally select Bryce Young if I was drafting, because I think he does have the highest upside. I think he was the best quarterback in college football the last couple of years and the fact that CJ Stroud, out of all of these quarterbacks, had the receivers with the most separation. I thought CJ Stroud played a great game against Georgia in the semifinal. That was the first legit team I think he's played and done well in. Obviously, played against Michigan the last couple of years, really struggled in those games. But I'm always worried with the schools like Alabama and Ohio State that have such big separation at wide receiver, how that translates to the NFL, specifically with Carolina now, who does not have DJ Moore anymore. Now, they did make a couple nice additions, brought in the tight end position, so they're giving you some weapons, though not the weapon caliber of DJ Moore. But I think Bryce Young, just the fact that Bryce can run a little bit more than CJ Stroud, he can do more zone read, more RPOs. He's a little bit more athletic, I would say, than Stroud, and he made some big time throws. And we've seen, Russell Wilson when he was in Seattle, Jalen Hurts, Drew Brees, obviously. Listen, Justin Fields, they say he's 6'3". He does not look 6'3" to me. And so we're seeing these guys that are maybe a little bit smaller that can run around, do production in the National Football League if done right. And I think Bryce Young is going to be a home run in the National Football League if he stays healthy, which is why I rank these guys as sort of Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, who I would put over CJ Stroud. Though again, the lack of tape does concern me a little bit. I think he is a project. If Vegas wants to even take him, at 7, or if Indianapolis wants to take him at 4, I think that could be a possibility. Though I think he really does need to sit for a couple of years, a lot like Josh Allen needed to sit for a little bit. Patrick Mahomes needed to sit for a year. And then you can see that kind of blossom. Will Levis, I did not see anything special out of Kentucky. A lot like Josh Rosen in that 2018 draft. I think Will Levis is going to be the bust of this year's quarterback class. I don't like him. I didn't like Zach Wilson. He reminds me a lot of Zach Wilson. A little quirky, a little small, not taking the game seriously. And so I think that Will Levis, wherever he goes, which again could potentially also be in the top 5, I don't think that team is going to be successful. Now, if Carolina does end up taking CJ Stroud, there are reports out there that Houston may get Anderson, the edge, Will Anderson, the edge out of Alabama. Though I think that's a lot of smoke screen. I think they would end up taking another Alabama prospect, that being Bryce Young. And then it's a battle between Indianapolis, Vegas, who knows, maybe Seattle, even with Geno that they re-signed. Are they still in the quarterback market? Do they go out and they get Anthony Richardson, who I think would be a good landing spot for him, sitting behind Geno Smith? We obviously just talked about Vegas and Jimmy Garoppolo. The Lamar Jackson situation is still on the table. So listen, if I was a team in the top 5, I already mentioned it, I would not take Will Levis. If I was a quarterback needy team, I would take a chance on Anthony Richardson. If I had a veteran quarterback that I could trust, Carolina's in a different situation because they need to win now. Andy Dalton's not a veteran I could trust, but Jimmy Garoppolo and Geno Smith are veterans that I could trust to start for the whole season. I'm not giving Andy Dalton the keys to the car, like the New Orleans Saints did last year, and they found out real quick they needed to upgrade their quarterback position. They went out and they ended up getting Derek Carr, obviously. Now, there's 2 kids next year. Obviously, the kid, Caleb Williams out of USC, and then there's also a kid out of North Carolina who's going to be really special. So it's going to be interesting to see, if a team like the Jets, if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, if Baltimore, or even if Indianapolis, if they aren't in love with Will Levis, Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, if they pass on a quarterback this year in terms of going the route next year. I think their new head coach, Shane Steichen, is going to be a phenomenal coach. We saw the work he did with Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts over the last 3 seasons. Herbert his rookie year and Jalen Hurts the last 2, making Jalen Hurts one of the best quarterbacks currently in the National Football League. So I trust Shane Steichen's judgment. I don't know if he's going to like Will Levis that much. I have a feeling they may like Anthony Richardson, but they have no plausible option behind them. So it's going to be really interesting to see. Again, I rate them as I think Bryce Young is going to be a phenomenal special talent in this year's NFL draft. I think he's a can't-miss prospect as long as he stays healthy. I think CJ Stroud has real potential, though I don't rank him above Bryce Young. I think he's going to be really good, though, out of this class. I think Anthony Richardson has a real chance to be a game-changing talent if brought into the right system. Same thing, though, really with Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. I think Will Levis is going to be your bust, and then Aiden Hooker, I think, could be potentially the real sort of second, third round guy that we see one or two guys every year come out and pop. I think he's that guy, again, a lot like Anthony Richardson, very similar in terms of talent, skill set. They just have to get to the right system. And again, quarterback play has never been easier in this league. I believe if you have good coaching, if you have good weapons, if you have a good organization around you, really quarterback play can succeed because the rules favor the offense. So there was certainly a lot of talent. There's some good defensive talent in this draft as well. We know about Jalen Carter and his issues. It'll be really interesting to see what Arizona decides to do with Free, whether they go after Will Anderson. Detroit potentially. Then there's the corner Gonzalez at Oregon, who's really long and lengthy. There could be some teams looking to trade up for these defensive players who think that they may need a pass rusher or a corner away from maybe going from a fringe playoff team to a perennial playoff team or even a Super Bowl contender. Howie Roseman and the NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles even have the 10th pick in the draft. So there's a lot happening. There's a lot going on in terms of the NFL draft, and I'm excited to see how things shake out in 3 weeks, and we will have a mock draft beforehand. Do you like that clip from the Brand's World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brand's World podcast right here on YouTube.